my name's Heather, and today I'm going to show you how I paint wine glasses with WaterFX. Now I used to use resin, but I found that even with a respirator it was bothering my lungs and giving me a cough, a bunch of other side effects. So I quit using resin, but I really missed being able to paint wine glasses. So I've since discovered WaterFX by Wynn Modern Art. And if you look at my description under the video, you can see the code, my code. So if you want to order anything from Wynn Modern Art, just use my code and you can get 10% off. So I am going to be mixing WaterFX with Wynn Modern Art Orion Glow Powder, this Little Piggy McCaw and Sapphire, golden iridescent pearl, fluid or high flow acrylics, and I really like the Folk Art Color Shift paints as well. So I'm going to grab my cups for my 4 different colors. I'm going to use my little spoon. So I don't use very much because ideally I only want to do 1 coat. And if I only have a little bit of powder or paint to my WaterFX, then it will dry nice and shiny and I don't need to put another coat on. Or another coat to seal it basically. So I'm just using a little bit, not even a full spoonful. Bear with me, I'm not used to doing these types of videos. Just a little bit. And my last one, I'm just going to use a little squirt of the paint. So for all of these, I'm going to add my WaterFX. Now with WaterFX, it is non-toxic, so I don't have to wear a respirator with it. I don't really even need to wear gloves either, but I find it's like taking glue off your fingers afterwards. So it's safe, it's just a little bit of a pain for cleanup. Technically, using mica powders, you should use a respirator when you're mixing them, but I'm not going to today so that you can hear me well. I'm also going to add a little bit of the pearl or iridescent pearl golden to my McCaw TLP as well, just to give it a little bit more substance, just a little squirt. And now I'm going to mix them all together. Mix them really well so you don't get any little chunks of TLP or this Little Piggy. You can get this Little Piggy pigments from Fluid Art Co. They have some really nice colors. There's one. I'm just going to stir it gently so I don't release any of the pigment, the powder, into the air. And last one, so this one's my glow powder. This stuff is awesome, I love it. You have to charge it with a light. It actually comes with this UV light that you can use to charge it, but regular light or sunlight will also charge it as well, and it will this will glow afterwards. All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to turn on my cup turner. You don't need a cup turner I like it because it does take, this way does take a little bit longer to dry. So then I don't have to sit there and try and turn it. I've also already cleaned off my glass with alcohol, which is really important because you don't want any fingerprints on there because your paints won't stick well. So you don't want to use too much paint in WaterFX because it'll drip and you're just going to end up wasting it. So I'm going to start with a line of my WaterFX just to kind of give myself a starting point, top and bottom. Join that, and then I'm going to do it on the bottom as well. I see a dog hair in there, but I'm pretty sure it's inside. I'll just double check. Yep, that's on the inside. And now I'm going to add some of my paints. I like to let my little lines of paint join so they can flow together and mix. It's probably good for that one for now. And I'll do my color shifting paint by Folk Art. Doesn't really matter what pattern you put it in. So I don't want my colors to mix too much. That's why I don't want too much paint on there. If they mix too much, they just all blend and you can't really see all the different colors in there. I want them to stay separate to an extent, but also mix a little bit, just to give a neat effect. All right, so I'll add a little bit of my glow in the dark WaterFX Plus glow powder just to some of this empty spots. And if you can avoid mixing the WaterFX and the glow powder with the other paints, it helps with being able to see the glow better. So there's a fair bit of paint on there right now. I do like, you could keep it like this where the paint's not joined in all the spots, but I kind of like to have it join. So I just kind of fill up the empty space as my cup turns with one of my stir sticks and just kind of use whatever color you need more of, or no color at all. So this part's a little bit tedious because I like to try and fill in all the empty spots, but you don't have to do that. It still looks neat if you don't do that. You can also use your clear WaterFX for this too, like this. Just add it in a couple little spots. But you don't want to add too much because then you're going to end up just wasting paint. It's neat to be able to see some clear areas through the paint as well, I find. So you can see my paint starting to blend a little bit here. bit more of this. Yeah. And you just kind of play with it as it goes. Also, I highly recommend getting a cup turner that will turn the opposite way, so you can create some swirls in your paint that you can't get if your cup always goes in the same direction. Areas are mostly filled in, except for this one little spot here. Like I said, you don't have to fill them all in if you don't want, but I like to currently. That's pretty good. So I actually have a fair bit of paint on here right now, a little bit too much for my liking. So what I like to do is either stop it and let it kind of pool down and drip off at the bottom, or what I started doing actually is have another paint or another glass ready. And also I like the ones that you can separate here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it pool. Oops, turn it on my paint. I'm just going to let it sit for a minute, and it's going to start to pool and drip on the other glass. I don't want too much to come off, so see how that kind of swirls a little bit? So I'm going to let that settle back, and I might do it to the other side, let it drip off the other side. Not pooling that bad. If it's not pooling too bad on the bottom side, then you're pretty good for the amount of paint you have on there. So again, it's swirling, so I'm just going to let that sit for a second and settle out, so I don't have any areas that are kind of bumped up. So I'm going to put that back. Make sure my paper towel's out of the way. And see, I have a little drip where I don't want it. So I'm going to grab a Q-tip with some alcohol. And when it comes around, I'm going to wipe it off. Right there. And I don't want to let it stop too long because it's going to start to pool again. I actually really like the patterns that are happening right now. As it turns, it probably will start to pool a little bit, so you might get rings rather than the nice swirly bits that you see right now. The only way you can really fix that is if you stop your turner, get rid of a little bit more paint, which I could do right now actually. This is the other way I do it. I just stop it for a second. So it's starting, you can see, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it's starting to move down, pooling down onto the bottom side. And I'm just gonna wait until I see a couple drips at the bottom, or a little bit of string coming off. Get rid of a bit of paint because you don't want too much, because like I said, it will pool in weird bumps once it dries. All right, so that's good. And now it's kind of bumped up on this side where it was dripping, so I'm going to stop it, let that move back down, and then let it go. And actually I might change directions, and it takes a minute sometimes. Another thing that you can do that looks kind of neat sometimes is kind of make little swirly bits. And the paint should even out a little. You're kind of creating a little bit of a divot, but the paint should fill back in. And if you're noticing that it's not, then you can just touch it with your stir stick, or add a little bit of paint back into the divot. And those little swirls aren't going to stay exactly like that, because there's enough paint on there that is going to move it around a bit. All right, so I think that's good for now. Oops, I see one spot I don't like. And my problem is I play with this too much and then I end up ruining it sometimes. So the key is to know when to stop. But one quick thing, I don't like how I made the little swirlies there. I like that part right there, but on the other side, I don't like it as much. So I wait for it to go back around, and then I'm gonna stop it for a sec. And let it move a bit. And we'll try it again. All right, so I think I'm gonna leave that. This way it takes a little bit of time for it to dry. If you're just doing a sealing layer of it, of the WaterFX, it dries pretty quickly. But to do it this way, I do find it takes a couple of hours before you really wanna take it off your cup turner. So I'm just gonna leave that, and I'm going to use the rest of my paint for my other one. So I might as well videotape it while I'm at it. Videotape aging myself here. Actually, I'm going to do the clear bit here again, because I kind of like that on the other one. Again, there's lots of dog hair in there. Inside though. So this is pretty much the same technique I used to use with resin, and I've just sort of adapted it to the WaterFX, and took a bit of time to get the hang of it, but I think I'm getting there. Like I said, I try to mix the WaterFX so that there's a lot more WaterFX, like a higher ratio WaterFX to powder or paint or whatever, just so that when it dries shinier. My goal is to not have to do a sealing coat, that it will dry shiny enough that you don't need one. But if it dries a little rough or a little bit matte, then I will do a sealing coat after the fact. But the thing that I have learned that's really important is if you are going to do another coat over top of this, wait some time. Don't do it the next day. I would say wait a week, if not a few days, because I've tried putting a sealing coat over top of this once it's dried, like the next day, and it caused, like, this part wasn't cured enough. It was dry to the touch, but it wasn't cured enough, and the second coat caused wrinkles and just ruined the first coat. So wait, make sure this is cured. Don't do it the next day. Make sure it's nice and cured. Even though it's dry, it's not cured. And if you work with resin, you know that. Now, I'm going to end up with too much paint on this one too, and where I don't have another glass that I'm going to work with, I'm just going to end up letting it drip on the paper towel. I use a silicone matte too, but it's darker, and I thought the white paper towel would be easier to see. So it's probably enough paint now. I'm just going to try and join all my spots. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit of WaterFX in some spots too, because I've got some big holes here that are a little hard to fill. Again, this part's tedious. I feel like there's more spots to fill than in the last one. Okay, so if you look at this first one, you can kind of see that line in the swirl there. It's gonna come around here in a second. That's because the paint, there's a little too much paint, see right here? And it's starting to swirl, which creates neat patterns. But if you have too much paint, you end up with this line all the way around. And it just doesn't look as good. What I'm gonna do, because it is starting to swirl that way, I'm gonna turn the cup turner so it goes the other way, and then that'll kind of create a neat pattern that way. So this one has a bit too much paint. I didn't fill in all the spots yet, but I'm gonna stop it, pour off a bit of paint first. I'm just gonna take my camera and show you what I'm talking about. See, it's starting to drip. So there's a fair bit of paint on this. I don't want all that paint. Kills me to waste it, but it is what it is. So I'm going to, swing it around, let these bumps settle back, and I'm going to let it drain from the other side. And this should sort of fill in some of my holes too, hopefully. So you can see this area has mixed a bit more than what's in this area. I don't know if you can tell or not. My paint has mixed a bit more on this one. It's hard to avoid sometimes, but again, it is what it is. Did I stop that before I meant to? I did. I'm gonna let some more drain off. And I think I have a spot right there. So not as much is dripping off now. So I'm getting a little better. A few more drips there. And then I'm going to turn it back on again. Stop it to let that settle. And keep going. Actually, I'm gonna go the other way. And I saw a little chunk that I didn't like, so I'm gonna scoop that out. But I think I made a weird pattern, but that should correct itself because the paint's still pretty wet. Yeah, just right there. All right, so I think I think all my holes are filled in. So I'm gonna let that turn for a bit. And I can show you the finished results after, but first of all, I'm just gonna try, no, I'll try it later. I wanted to show you the glow in the dark, but I have way too many lights on right now, so I will show you later what that looks like. So I will stop that and we'll show you later on. All right, so I'm back again. These cups have been drying for a little bit, maybe about an hour, not sure. But I just wanted to show you what they look like when I turn the light out. So I'm just charging them right now with a light, and I'm gonna shut them off, or shut it off. Here we go. And this is what they look like in the dark. So you can see the glow from the glow powder.